So, at this point, I've made several videos about my senior capstone project that dealt with machine learning and video game development. However, I didn't really explain how machine learning works, mostly because at the point I didn't have a super good grasp on the concept. However, towards the end of the semester, I got to do a assignment on how neural networks actually are trained and how they learn. So I did learn how that works. So I thought, hey, since I couldn't find that information when I was trying to learn how that works, I'll put out a video on how that works. So here you go. I'm going to show you basically on a small scale a machine learning neural network learning how to do a task and basically the algorithm behind training that. So hope you enjoy. If you look up machine learning, you'll probably see images like this all over the place. This is a representation of a neural network, which I put together in Microsoft Paint in a couple minutes because, yeah, I don't want to steal someone else's image. Also, I like to have color. Anyways, so the pink is basically the input. So you send input into a set of neurons. This, I only have one layer of neurons in the yellow circles. But for most neural networks, you'll have more than one layer just because that allows you to do more complicated behaviors. And then from the yellow, you get to the blue, which is the output. And so basically how a neural network works is you take your input, the pink, you send it into the middle layers, which are the computational stuff. They work their quote unquote magic. And then they send out their answer to the blue. And the inner workings is the part that before this I didn't know how to explain, but now I do. So basically, you'll have a training algorithm that will adjust the inner workings, the inner layers, the yellow, so that as they go through iterations of trying to turn the pink into the blue, they'll get closer. They'll have a heuristic, if you're familiar with that term. They'll have like a guiding thing like, hey, you're going away from it, so go the other way. So yeah, and basically each one of the input numbers or values, usually you, or at least in my experience, you try to work with input that is numeric, so they're all numbers, because that makes it easier to, multiply them by weights, which are just numbers. So each one of those lines going from the pink to the yellow represents a weight that input is being multiplied by, and then that's stored in that neuron, and then all those numbers that you get from multiplying the input by a weight get put together via a step function or a summation function or something of that sort to get your output, and then your output tells you your answer. Alright, so this is my code for my Python program that I coded that basically does machine learning on a very small scale. It's not like a massive thing. But yeah, basically I taught it to do an OR and an AND function. Basically, I have a step function there. Basically reduces output to either 1 or 0, which is very useful if you're trying to teach something how to do logic. And then I also have a 2 decimal function, basically just cleans up numbers so that they're 2 decimals rather than having them, because like this, I needed my output to look pretty for my professor. But basically, this is what it looks like when machine learning is running. It's just a lot of numbers flashing on the screen really fast. And usually you wouldn't have all of this put out because it is a lot of numbers. But yeah. My professor wanted to have output to show that our program was working correctly. So I was like, it's not on me. Like, he's the one who has to read all of it. But basically, this is my part that did the AND function. So basically, we have the epoch, which is the iteration that it's on. We have our 2 inputs, which is x1 and x2, and we have our yd, which is the value that we are expecting. Then with that, we have our two weights, weight 1 and weight 2. Those are randomly generated. And then we have our y, which is our outcome based off of those two weights. So how we get our outcome is we multiply our input by our weights, run it through a step function to get either 1 or 0. And from there we get our error, which is just yd minus y. And then we will generate new weights using our error if there is error. If there's no error, then it's just 0. Or there's no change to the weights because of the equation we use. So then we just run through that a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot of times. And that's how you train something to do. And basically when the algorithm no longer has error, then we stop. And then we have our alpha, which was preset. That's just how much we change things each time. Our theta, which is just a random number. I can show you the equation later. And then the weights 1 and weight 2. So yeah, basically we have an array for training our and an array for training our or function. We have a preset alpha, a random theta, and random weights. And then just variables to hold everything else. And then, yeah. Sorry, I didn't do a good job of keeping up with the video that I took. But basically, then I have a loop that trains my OR function, and then I also have one for the AND function. They're basically identical. It's just they have different data put into them. So, yeah. Basically, we get our y by doing x1 times w2 plus x2 times w2 minus theta. That's what the theta is for, and the theta is randomly generated. So then we put our y through step function to get a 1 or a 0. And yeah, then we just iterate through it a lot of times. A decent amount of the code is just for aesthetics. I need to make my output look really nice, so I do that, and yeah. But basically, yeah, that's basically how my thing works. Oh yeah, and then the new weights are generated by w1 plus alpha times x1 times error. w2 is the same thing, it's just w2 plus alpha times x2 times error. And that's how we change our weights. So if there's no error, w1 and w2 are not changed by anything. And yeah, that's basically how it works. It just goes through and it iterates through, editing the weights when it needs to until finally it gets to a point where there's no error. And then if you put in the data, it will give you the correct answer for a simple logical thing. But I trained my machine algorithm to... Okay, so I was talking very fast. I was trying to keep up with the recording I took of going through my program. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to slow down and just sum it all up. So basically, yeah, machine learning works by taking input x1, x2, and supervised learning in this case. Sorry, I need to clarify because there are different types of machine learning. Supervised machine learning takes input and an expected value, multiplies the input by weights to get a value, and then looks at the difference between those, the error, the difference between the expected and the outcome value to find the error, and then using that error adjusts its weights so that they're closer and so it gets a better idea of where it should be. And so, yeah, honestly, I'm so glad that I got to do this assignment because it clarified so much regarding machine learning. Because I watched so many videos and read so many things about machine learning, but they would never explain precisely how it works. And I probably could have found it if I looked harder, but basically this is how machine learning works, is it just goes through and not brute force. It has a heuristic, it has the error, but it just goes until it finds the closest approximation, and yeah. And what's really cool about this is after I've run all this, I can just take the equation that I use and the weights and stuff, and I can export those to an algorithm, because now that I've learned the behavior, I can export those to an algorithm, and then that algorithm can use those weights automatically to run a logical analysis on things, and that's just really cool. So like, now that I've trained something, I can export that data and use that in a different program, and it will benefit from all the time that my program took to learn how to do the behavior, and can do it within like milliseconds. And that's the benefit of using machine learning. I mean, I know I talked about that in my conclusion to my senior research project video, but yeah, basically, I don't know. I really like machine learning. I'm probably going to be messing around with it a lot this summer. But basically, that's how machine learning works. Sorry. I just woke up and I was like, hey, I've been putting this off for like a week. I need to actually sit down and make this video. But I made it. And thanks for watching if you got this far. If you want to like this video or subscribe to my channel, I would absolutely appreciate that. Always helps. If you want to comment below, like what I did wrong, what I did right, you can do that. Also, you might not have noticed, but I have a new logo animation. Learned how to animate in DaVinci Resolve this week. That was a fun time. Also, you might have noticed that I was animating around my video a little bit in this video. Tell me what you think of that if you want to. And yeah, basically that's all I've got for you. Thanks so much for watching, and see y'all in my next video.